Cristy Lee here with Driveline Forensics. Today, we're going to put the drive carrier assembly back into the vehicle. The good news, it's easier than you think. So let's get in there and prove how easy it really is. To get it done right, you're going to need safety straps, chains, rags, a die grinder with an abrasive pad, a good brake and parts cleaner, Dana-approved RTV, scissors, an impact gun, an offset socket wrench, combination wrench, a torque wrench, a 24mm adapter, and of course, safety glasses. The vehicle is still grounded from when we took the carrier out, and the carrier flange is still supported with chains, and we've got a strap on the drive shaft. Now, before you do anything, make sure your guide pins are installed at 3 and 9 o'clock. They might still be in place from the removal, but in case you took them out to clean the surface area, just make sure you put them back. Because once we start getting into RTV, time matters. And I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. I've already cleaned the carrier ring surface with an abrasive pad on my die grinder. I was really careful to get all of the gunk off without removing any of the metal. I also inspected for cracks, nicks, and burrs on the machine surface. Basically, I'm looking for anything that might affect the sealing. I'm also going to check the carrier bolt holes and studs for damage and foreign material. If any fasteners are damaged or there are loose studs or cross-threaded holes, make sure to replace them. I also used a good solvent to remove any gunk, debris, or old RTV that's left behind. I'm just getting everything ready to reassemble the assembly. Now, everyone watching has probably installed RTV before, but we could all probably use a few RTV reminders, what I call RTV 101. When you use RTV, cut the tube opening to about 1/8 of an inch so your beads stay the right size, because when it comes to RTV, more ain't always better. And don't flatten out the beads, you'll get a better seal and less mess. Okay, everybody good with that? All right, awesome, let's keep going. Now I'm going to use my Dana-approved RTV on the carrier ring, starting at the center of the carrier ring and then around all the bolt holes. So this Dana-recommended RTV skims over in about 20 minutes, and that's great. Love this stuff. But if you aren't done with the install in that 20 minutes, you have to scrape off the dried RTV that you just put on and reapply it. That's why you want to have your pins in place and be ready to go, because now we're working against the clock. Okay, let's install the assembly. Before you do anything, make sure the carrier housing is clean and debris-free. First, lift the carrier to get it into the guide pins. The carrier has to be square to the axle housing to align the output shaft splines and studs. Now, just before the flange contacts the housing studs, align the splines of the output shaft to the output side gear by rotating the input yoke. When the splines engage, the carrier will slide forward on the studs and guide pins. Once the carrier is on the pins, you can lower the hoist enough to disconnect the chains from the carrier flange. Now you can pop on the stud washers, nuts, and bolts and start the bolts by hand. Then snug them down in a crisscross pattern with your impact gun. Once you've got everything snugged down, you're good to take out the guide pins. Use a combination wrench to get the bolts behind the power divider. Then you can use the torque wrench with the 24mm adapter to torque everything down to spec. So here's an important tidbit about the torque wrench adapter. When you use it, you need to install the adapter on the wrench at a 90-degree angle for proper pound-foot ratio. Can anyone guess why? Anyone? Okay, so if you install the adapter straight off the end of the wrench, you just made that wrench 3 inches longer, which affects the wrench setting. So you might think you're pulling 250 foot-pounds of torque, but the bolt is only seeing 200 foot-pounds. Installing the adapter at a 90-degree angle compensates for that. Make sense? Okay, good. Now let's put in a new axle shaft gasket. We're going to put everything back in the way it came out, so I figure you can either play the carrier removal video in reverse or just keep watching. Remember, the shafts are different lengths, so don't mix them up. Now reinstall the washers and nuts and torque to OEM specs. Now let's finish her up and reinstall the drive shaft. Pay close attention that the bearing cups are completely seated between the yoke nibs. Then torque the strap bolts to spec with the torque wrench. Finally, refill the axle with new lube and fill it so the lube level is at the bottom of the fill hole in the rear cover of the housing, not below. Remember, the lube should be ready to run out. And that's it. All done, you guys. Nice work. And hey, If you're making more repairs today, check out our full Driveline Forensics video library and take us along. We're here for you and love helping out. Thanks for watching.